I was thinking about this today, and yeah, I realized that basically taking a creative writing class in high school was the beginning of a whole new journey for me, to be honest. Um, like, writing genuinely, truly saved my life, like, legitimately did. And the reason I say that is because it was the only place I was allowed to have that was mine, where nobody was allowed to come into and, tell me what to do with, unfortunately, because of the whole Jehovah's Witness thing growing up and everything, you're in a very high control, high rigid, like everything has a rule to it. You can't listen to things, you can't watch things, you have to analyze everything you're looking at because if there's anything in there that's going to be shameful to Jehovah, then it has to go and da 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 and all that stuff, And like I didn't really have many human connections like with actual people, like I wasn't really allowed to have connections of that extent unless they were Jehovah's Witnesses. And let's be real, like that wasn't really happening either because they were so quick to turn on you. And so as a teenager growing up where you were kind of like like one of the only teenagers there wasn't really association for me to hang out with, there wasn't really people. There was like occasional bursts of people like here and there, but there was never like a constant like, hey, these have been your friends since kindergarten up in the Kingdom Hall. That wasn't a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like that wasn't a thing. So at least not for me. So I realize now that taking that creative writing class helped me to discover that I actually liked to write. And my Aunt Kelly, which to this day, thank you so much for doing this for me, but she, as a gift one day, she gave me this beautiful, and I still have it somewhere. It's packed away someplace. I gotta find that. Um, she gave me this beautiful green and blue journal with like a really specialized pen that went with it. It had a little like blue ribbon that would close the book and all that, and it was like a journal. And I don't think I realized it, and I don't think she realized it. But by her giving me that book, like she basically gave me the door to my freedom. And I say that because I would carry that book with me everywhere, and I started writing Tekken stories, which was a whole issue in my household. Like, like, oh, those are fighting games, you can't play those, da 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 da. But my thing was, I wasn't so much attached to the fighting, I was very attached to the characters after a while. Like, there was people that, like, I played the games to the point where I would, like, immerse myself kind of in the world. And I got to where I realized, like, wow, so at home, it's abusive in the Kingdom Hall, it's abusive. School is abusive, but this world I get to create with my Tekken characters and everything, like that's not. And so I basically gave myself friends, pretty much in a sense. Like I wrote myself a character who was like an avatar to kind of go into this world and kind of like discover this, and I got to like just come up with this whole really cool journey that I really didn't know where I was going with it when I first started writing it. I was just kind of like, oh no, let's see what happens, and I just started writing this character, and he was interacting with my favorite characters. King from Tekken is my favorite, and then like Jun Kazama was another favorite if anyone's familiar with his characters. If not, y'all know what the hell I'm talking about. But and Julia Chang, those were like my top trinity of like characters that to this day I still kind of like always come back to. And so I got to come up with these really cool stories that let me explore pieces of myself that I wasn't allowed to explore in the real world or with people or, friends or any of that stuff. So over time, like these characters actually grew to be like real to me. Like, obviously they weren't walking around in my, in front of me and everything, but like even now, I can go into a character's mindset easily because I've, been writing these stories for over 20 years now with these characters. I'm starting to come back and try to finish off some of the stories that I just kind of left hanging that I never thought I was going to come back to. And I just happened to come back to them and reread them one day just out of boredom. And I was like, these were really powerful to me. And I was really drawn right back into the worlds again and the characters and everything. And I just realized that like these characters stayed with me through my whole journey. Even if I wasn't writing, like there was days if I was having like a really depressed time, I would sit there and think about what would this look like if so and so was here? How would they comfort me in this moment, kind of thing. And I would like that would get me by. And I guess now saying that out loud sounds weird, but yeah, no, it's I'm getting kind of emotional over it. Sorry. Um, yeah, it meant a lot to me. It still means a lot to me. And like I said, it was just a place of freedom where, as much as people try to get, oh, you can't write about things like that, you can't, blah, 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 what are you, blah, 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 and like going off and everything, like, my mind is my mind. You can't just roll up into my head and tell me like what I'm allowed to think about. You can sit there and I could sit there and like yes you and everything, but my mind is mine. You can't just come in there and reshape it. So that was one of the things that I found so beautiful about writing these stories and just writing in general was I was able to create vast, very detailed, very realistic kind of worlds in my mind that basically when I was sitting in these long ass, boring ass Kingdom Hall meetings and everything for 2 hours or whatever the hell it was, 3 days a week, I would just go whoop and just pop right back mentally into that world and just stare at a piece of the carpet and just act like I was listening. And I would just be in my own little adventure someplace. And then I would come home and start, writing in my journal about it. And eventually there was fanfiction.net, which is a site that I still use. And so I would take the journal that my Aunt Kelly gave me and I would lay it down and like with Microsoft Word back then, I would just type up everything that I wrote and I started publishing my stories. And then I started getting feedback and I met people who, I mean, even though I don't talk to them now, like they were very, very important to my development and they always will be. They're pillars in my development, people that I'll never forget. So I met them through this world that I created. I met them through being able to come up with these stories and be able to be free there. And doing that, like, it's difficult to describe unless like you do it yourself, but like, it's when you don't have human connections or you don't have people that you can turn to, that you can trust, that you feel safe with, there's something really powerful about saying that's okay. Like in my mind I have people that I've created, like a team of characters in my mind that like I don't need you to validate like whatever. I can literally just pop into my mind and just mentally hang out with these characters and just kind of come up with stories and adventures and scenes, like even just specific things like what would it be like if this happened, like just yeah, it just basically set me free, which was kind of interesting because I don't know if anyone's ever seen this, but I remember at the time, still one of my favorite movies, but Sucker Punch by Zack Snyder. I remember going to the movie theater to watch that because I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, this looks cool. And I would highly suggest you watch it and watch the director's cut because that was definitely a lot better. But the character herself kind of goes through where horrific traumatic things are happening to her, but she's checking out and she's kind of going to these worlds and the people around her are becoming characters in her world, and she goes to a place where she has power and that helps her survive all these traumatic things that she's going through, which was very similar to what I was doing. But yeah, I'm just realizing now that I'm picking these stories back up and I'm investing my time back into these characters again and like finding them all over again and realizing they never left, which was powerful when I like sat down and started writing again. And I was like, wow, like I hopped right back into this character's mindset and it sounded exactly like them. It was the same thing. I didn't have to like, what were they like again? Like they're in here with me at all times. And that's like a gift to me personally. That's, I don't know if many people can relate to that, but I mean, me personally, like that's a gift that I can be able to go places like mentally and just come up with these stories and share them with people. So yeah, I didn't know that taking a creative writing class and getting a journal was going to be like the key, but I wanted to thank all the people who helped me get to that point where I was able to believe in my writing and find these characters and find these stories. And even now, when things get tough, if I'm having a hard day and everything, and sometimes it's really fulfilling for me to just start writing again. And so that's what I'm doing now. But yeah, it's interesting how the mind works and how you will adapt to any scenario. And if you're resilient enough, you always find some way out.